Today's video lesson. Before we begin today's discussion, let me ask, how many of you here are artists? How many of you are painters or appreciate paintings and sketches? Art is a natural language of expressing oneself and is a universal form of communication. Thomas Merton once said that art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same. Today, we shall discuss an excerpt from an article by Natalie Troveroy titled Landscape of the Soul, Ethics and Spirituality in Chinese Painting. This excerpt is a comparative study of European and Chinese paintings by Natalie Troveroy. Natalie Troveroy is an art historian who translated the work City of Jinn, a book by William Dalrymple. The chapter begins with a small anecdote about an 8th century Chinese painter, Wu Daozi. His last painting was a landscape which was authorized and sponsored by Xuanzong to decorate a palace wall. After his work was completed, he called on the emperor to view and appreciate his painting. He had hidden his painting behind a screen so that only the emperor admired the wonderful scenery for a long time, paying attention to the forests, the high mountains, waterfalls, the floating clouds in the sky, along with the flying birds and the men walking along a hilly path. The painter then informed the emperor that in the mountain cave at the foot of the mountains lived a spirit. The doors to the cave appeared suddenly after the painter clapped his hands. He then invited the emperor to come inside the cave and led the way forward. However, to the emperor's astonishment, the doors to the cave closed behind the painter and the entire painting vanished from the wall of the palace. That was the last time the painter, Wu Daozi, was seen in this world. Such legends and anecdotes played an important part in Chinese classical education, as they helped the masters to guide their disciples in the right direction. The books of Confucius and Zhuangzi are filled with such stories. These were used by masters to explain the concept and meaning of art and to make abstract ideas comprehensible to their students. Another example of a Chinese painting is given where a famous painter would not draw the eye of a dragon he had painted in fear that it would fly away. The writer with the European tale of Antwerp in the 15th century. A master blacksmith, Quentin Metzels, had fallen in love with the painter's daughter, but was afraid he would not be accepted because of his profession. To win his love, Quentin sneaked into the painter's studio and painted a very realistic-looking fly on the master's latest panel. The fly was so realistically painted that the painter tried to swat it away. This story is an example of realism in the arts. Realism in painting is the attempt to present subject matter truthfully, as it is an originality without avoiding any elements. It is also called naturalism. Impressed by his work, the painter admitted Quentin as an apprentice in his studio and also let him marry his daughter. Quentin later went on to become one of the most famous painters. These two contrasting stories are used to highlight the differences between the objectives and approaches of Chinese and European paintings. European paintings are traditionally more figurative and realistic, while the Chinese arts are more abstract. Chinese paintings are abstract since they cannot be explained or defined in real terms. One has to feel or experience the artist's point of view. A Chinese painter does not want you to borrow his eyes or see exactly what he does. He wants you to experience the essence of the inner life and spirit of the painting. European paintings stress ontologistic likeness, where the painter wants you to borrow his eye while viewing his painting. He chooses a single viewpoint and wants his viewers to look at the painting from the same viewpoint as his own. Chinese painting do not have a single viewpoint. The landscape drawn is not a real one, and one can enter it from whichever viewpoint he or she wants to. The Chinese painter wants the viewers to actively participate in viewing a painting using his own physical and mental faculties. In the words of Jerzy Kosinski, the principle of true art is not to portray, but to evoke. The Chinese landscape is an inner mental landscape, a spiritual and conceptual space which is expressed as shanshui. It means mountain water and represents the landscape of the soul. This should explain to you the title of the chapter. It reflects the Taoist principle of viewing the universe. Taoism is a religious and philosophical tradition of Chinese origin. According forms the masculine yang, which reaches vertically upwards towards heaven. It is stable, warm, and dry in the sun. Its complementary opposite pole is the water, or the feminine yin, which flows horizontally on the earth and is fluid, moist, and cool. According to the Taoist principle, the interaction of these two energies of yin and yang make up this universe. The interaction point of these two energies is the third element, or the middle void. This middle void can be compared to the yogic practice of pranayama, the process of breathing in, retaining the air, and then breathing out. The small space of suspension of breath is the void where meditation occurs. Thus, in a Chinese landscape, the unpainted space is the interaction between the mountain, or yang, and the river, or yin. Man, too, finds a role in the space between the heaven and the earth. He acts as a conduit or connecting channel of communication between the two poles of the universe. His presence in the landscape is essential as, according to Fasua Sheng, he is the eye of the landscape. The next part of the chapter has an article published in the Hindustan Times, dated 28th August 2005 by Brinda Suri. The article is titled
Outside Art. The French painter Jean Dubuffet referred to fine art as cultural art. Art brut is a French term that translates as raw art. It includes graffiti, works of prisoners, children, and primitive artists, and is the raw expression of visions or emotions unrestricted by convention. Arising from this concept, the idea of outsider art, or art done by academically untrained people who have no formal training but raw talent and artistic insight, gradually became the fastest growing area of interest in contemporary art. The outsider art is in contrast to the art produced by academically trained artists. Art brut, or raw art, was made of anything from a tin to a sink or a broken down car. It was in a raw state with regards to cultural and artistic influences. An example of this art brut or outsider art is the Rock Garden at Chandigarh. It is a garden sculpted with stone and recycled material by 80-year-old Nek Chand. He received international recognition when his rock garden sculpture, Women by the Waterfall, was featured on the anniversary cover of a UK-based magazine pioneering in outsider art publications. Recognizing Nek Chand's art, and in order to honor him, the Swiss Commission for UNESCO organized an European exposition of his works. It was a 5-month interactive show, Realm of Nek Chand, at leading museums in Switzerland, Belgium, France, and Italy. However, for Nek Chand, the biggest reward was walking through the garden and watching people enjoy his creations. With that, we come to the end of today's chapter, where we have seen the contrasting motives and principles of European and Chinese paintings, the effects of Taoism on Chinese paintings, and also the contemporary style of art brut or outsider